These are the results from two independent DNA laboratories. Senator John Kennedy's Louisiana draw cut through the packed House chamber like a scalpel. He held up two sealed envelopes marked with chain of custody documentation. Official laboratory seals visible to the cameras. The room went silent, every eye fixed on those envelopes. Orchid cell mark and body technology. Kennedy continued his folksy tone, somehow making the words more devastating. Both laboratories are used by the FBI for criminal cases. Both analyzed genetic samples from Representative Ilhan Omar and Ahmed No Said Elmi, the man she married in London in February 2009. Representative Ilhan Omar sat frozen at the witness table, flanked by four lawyers who were frantically whispering to her. She'd spent the morning on Twitter calling this investigation a racist witch hunt. She'd told CNN this was persecution of a Muslim woman. She'd assured her progressive allies that the brother marriage allegation was a disgusting conspiracy theory with no evidence. Kennedy opened the first envelope with deliberate precision, pulling out an official laboratory report. Orchid Cellmark Laboratory dated March 15, 2025. Analysis of autosomal DNA markers comparing samples from Ilhan Omar and Ahmed Nur Said Elmi. He adjusted his reading glasses and read directly from the report. The two individuals tested share approximately 49.7% of their variable genetic material. This percentage is consistent with a full sibling relationship. The probability of sibling is 99.94%. The probability that these individuals are first-degree relatives versus unrelated individuals is greater than 10.000 to 1. The chamber exploded. Democrats shouting objections about privacy violations. Republicans demanding Omar be arrested immediately. Media in absolute chaos. Reporters shouting questions. Cameras flashing. Speaker Mike Johnson's gavel banged uselessly. Kennedy waited completely calm until the noise died down enough for him to be heard. Now, I anticipated that Representative Omar's legal team would challenge these results. Claims of contamination, laboratory error, that sort of thing. So, I had the samples independently tested by a second laboratory. He opened the second envelope. Body technology. Virginia. Used by the Department of Defense for DNA analysis. Dated March 18, 2025. Same two individuals. He read again shared genetic material 49.6%. Probability of full sibling relationship 9,993%. Conclusion. The tested individuals are biological siblings with virtual certainty. Kennedy sat down both reports and looked directly at Ilhan Omar. Representative Omar, for 6 years you've called the allegation that you married your brother a disgusting lie. You've called it a racist conspiracy theory. You've accused anyone who asked about it of Islamophobia and bigotry. But two separate laboratories using your DNA and Ahmed Elm's DNA have reached the same conclusion with 99.9% scientific certainty. Ahmed Nur Said Elmi is your biological brother, and on February 12, 2009 in London, England, you married him. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Omar's lawyers had stopped whispering. Kennedy pulled out more documents. Photographs. British public records. Witness statements. Over the next 4 days, I'm going to show you not just the DNA evidence, but British immigration records listing them as siblings. School enrollment forms from London listing the same parents. Photographs of them as children together. Witnesses who knew them as brother and sister in the UK. And the timeline showing that this fraudulent marriage was used to get Ahmed Elmi into the United States on a spousal visa just months after they were married. But today, right now, I want you to understand one thing. He tapped the DNA reports. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't a racist smear. This isn't Islamophobia. This is science. This is evidence. This is fraud. Representative Ilhan Omar married her biological brother. And I'm going to prove it beyond any shadow of doubt. He sat down. The chamber erupted again. But through the chaos, one image dominated every camera shot. Ilhan Omar sitting motionless, her face pale, staring at the DNA reports that had just destroyed her career. To understand how we got to this moment, to understand how a country lawyer from Louisiana came to be holding DNA evidence proving a sitting congresswoman married her brother, we need to go back 3 months. The House of Representatives had endured enough. For years, allegations had swirled around Representative Ilhan Omar. immigration fraud, brother marriage, tax violations, campaign finance irregularities. The mainstream media dismissed it as conspiracy theories. Progressive activists called it Islamophobia. Democratic leadership protected her, but the new Republican majority had different priorities. Speaker Mike Johnson stood at the podium announcing what many thought impossible. The House has voted to appoint a special counsel to investigate allegations of criminal conduct by Representative Ilhan Omar. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana will serve as special counsel with full subpoena power and access to all federal records. He will present findings in 90 days, at which time the House will vote on expulsion. Republicans celebrated, Democrats screamed witch hunt, progressives organized protests, and in his Senate office, John Kennedy began assembling his team. Kennedy sat behind his desk reviewing files accumulated over years, public records, court documents, tax returns, immigration applications, witness statements, photographs. His chief investigator, former FBI agent Sarah Chen, sat across from him. Senator Special Counsel, we have enough for multiple felonies. How do you want to present it? Kennedy's eyes were sharp despite his folksy demeanor. Sarah, I've been a prosecutor a long time. People don't trust bombshells dropped all at once. Too convenient, too perfect. They think you're making it up. But if you build a case brick by brick, walk them through evidence step by step, let them reach conclusions before you state them, that's when you win. He organized files into 5 stacks. 5 days, 5 hearings, each focuses on one aspect of fraud. By the end, the evidence will be overwhelming. The House will have no choice but to expel her. He tapped each stack in sequence. Day 1. The marriages timeline. Multiple marriages. Overlapping relationships. Proof she married Elmi while with her C. Paper trail. Simple. Factual. Undeniable. Day 2. The brother. DNA evidence. UK witnesses who knew them as siblings. School records. Family photos. British immigration documents. Prove Elmi is her brother. The bombshell. But it only works because Day 1 established credibility. Day 3. The money. Tax fraud. Joint returns with Elmi while living with her C. Student loan fraud. Campaign finance violations show she profited financially. Day 4. The lies. Every video of her denying allegations. Each denial next to evidence proving it false. Pattern of perjury. Destroy credibility completely. Day 5. The verdict. Final report. Recommendation. Expulsion vote. DOJ moves forward with charges. Chen smiled. You really are a country lawyer. Just happened to be the smartest one in the room. Kennedy's expression turned serious. I don't care about Omar's politics, religion, race, or background. I care about one thing. Did she break the law? If she did, does she face the same consequences anyone else would? In America, we are equal under the law. If a congresswoman can commit fraud and escape consequences because she's politically protected, we don't have a justice system. We have a political system. That's not what I swore to defend. He gathered the files. Let's go to work. 5 days to prepare. Then we show America exactly what Ilhan Omar is. The House chamber was packed. Every seat filled. Media from around the world. Members of Congress on both sides looking tense. And at the witness table, Representative Ilhan Omar, flanked by 3 lawyers looking defiant. At the counsel table, John Kennedy sat alone with his files and a yellow legal pad. No team of associates, no assistants, just one prosecutor and the truth. Speaker Johnson gave the hearing to order. This special counsel investigation into Representative Ilhan Omar will now commence. Special Counsel Kennedy, you may begin your presentation. Kennedy stood slowly, buttoning his suit jacket. He walked to the podium with the unhurried gait of someone who had all the time in the world and nothing to prove. He looked at the assembled members, then at Omar, then back to the chamber. When he spoke, his Louisiana accent was thick, his tone conversational, almost apologetic. Members of Congress, I want to start by saying something important. This investigation isn't about politics. It's not about religion. It's not about where someone was born or what they look like or what party they belong to. It's about the law and whether the law applies equally to everyone or whether being a member of Congress puts you above it. Over the next 5 days, I'm going to present evidence, documents, testimony, records, and I'm going to let you judge for yourselves whether Representative Omar broke the law. I'm just a country lawyer from Louisiana. I'm going to try to keep this simple, and I'm going to start with the most basic question. Who did Ilhan Omar marry, and when did she marry them? He pulled out his first exhibit, a timeline printed on a large poster board. Let me walk you through Representative Omar's marital history as documented in public records, court filings, and legal documents. Kennedy approached the timeline with the confidence of someone who'd explained complex fraud schemes to countless juries. He pointed to the first entry, 2002. According to Representative Omar's own statements, she enters into a faith marriage with Ahmed Hirsi in Minnesota. Now, a faith marriage is a religious ceremony. It's not legally recognized by the state of Minnesota. They're not legally married, but they present themselves as married. They have a wedding ceremony. They start a life together. Is that fair? Representative Omar's lead attorney interjected, "Special counsel, my client is not required to answer questions at this time. I'm not asking her to incriminate herself." Kennedy interrupted gently. "I'm just asking if my statement of publicly available facts is accurate. She's made these statements herself in interviews and on social media. I'm just confirming the timeline." He looked at Omar. "You had a faith marriage to Ahmed Hirsi in 2002. Correct?" Omar conferred with her attorneys, then nodded curtly. "Yes, thank you, ma'am. Now, after this faith marriage in 2002, you and Mr. Hirsi had children together, correct?" "Yes, 2 children. And you lived together as a family?" "Yes. You presented yourselves to friends, neighbors, and community as husband and wife in our religious community." "Yes." Kennedy made a note on his legal pad. "Understood. Now, let's move forward to 2008. He pointed to the next entry on the timeline. 2008. Representative Omar files for a legal divorce from Ahmed Hirsi with the state of Minnesota. But wait, how can you divorce someone you were never legally married to? He pulled out a court document and displayed it on the screen. This is the divorce filing from Minnesota courts dated November 2008. It lists Ahmed Hirsi as her spouse and requests legal dissolution of marriage. But Minnesota has no record of a marriage license for Ilhan Omar and Ahmed Hirsi. No legal marriage certificate. Nothing. So, how can there be a divorce if there was never a legal marriage? Representative Dan Goldman, a Democrat from New York and former federal prosecutor himself, spoke up. "Special counsel, perhaps there was a mistake in the filing." Kennedy nodded appreciatively. "That's a reasonable question, Congressman. Let's see if we can answer it." He pulled out another document. This is Representative Omar's explanation from a 2016 statement. She says, and I quote, "There are cultural and religious differences in marriage process. Our community recognizes faith marriages even though the state does not. I sought a legal divorce from my faith marriage to ensure no confusion going forward." So, she's claiming she needed a legal divorce from a faith marriage. But here's the problem with that explanation. Kennedy pulled out tax documents. If the faith marriage wasn't legally recognized, why did she file joint tax returns with Ahmed Hirsi in 2007? Joint tax returns require you to be legally married under federal law. But she claims they were only faith married, not legally married. So either she committed tax fraud by filing joint returns when not legally married, or she was legally married and her later claim about faith marriage only is false. Either way, something doesn't add up. He let that sink in before continuing. Now, let's move to 2009. This is where things get really interesting. Kennedy displayed a new set of documents. Official records with the seal of the United Kingdom. February 2009. While supposedly in the process of divorcing Ahmed Hirsi in Minnesota, Representative Omar travels to London, England. And on February 12, 2009, she legally marries Ahmed Noord Elmi at the Harrow Register Office in London. This is the official UK marriage certificate. Ilhan Omar married Ahmed Elmi in 2009 in London. He displayed the certificate on screen for everyone to see. Now, you might be wondering, who is Ahmed Elmi? We're going to get into that in great detail tomorrow. But for today, I just want to establish the timeline. Representative Vicentive Omar married Ahmed Elmi in February 2009. According to UK law and US law, she is now legally married to Ahmed Elmi. That's not a faith marriage. That's a legal marriage recognized by 2 governments. Kennedy pulled out more documents. But here's what's interesting. After marrying Ahmed Elmi in London in February 2009, Representative Omar returns to Minnesota. And according to property records, tax documents, and utility bills, she continues living at the same address she'd been sharing with Ahmed Hirsi. Let me show you. He displayed utility bills, lease agreements, and other documents. This apartment in Minneapolis. Utility bills show both Ilhan Omar and Ahmed Hirsi living there continuously from 2007 through 2011, including the entire period when she was legally married to Ahmed Elmi. Neighbors who lived in the building during this time have provided sworn statements that Ilhan Omar and Ahmed Hirsi lived together as a couple with their children throughout this entire period. Kennedy pulled out several affidavits. I have 12 sworn statements from neighbors, building management, and local community members. They all say the same thing. Ilhan Omar and Ahmed Hirsi lived together as a married couple with 2 children from 2007 through 2011. None of them ever saw Ahmed Elmi at the residence. So, let me establish what we know for certain. 2002. Faith marriage to Ahmed Hirsi. 2 children together. 2007. Filing joint tax returns with Ahmed Hirsi. 2008 filing for divorce from Ahmed Hirsi despite no legal marriage. 2009 legal marriage to Ahmed Elmi in London. 2009 to 2011 living with Ahmed Hirsi in Minneapolis while legally married to Ahmed Elmi. Now you might be thinking maybe Ahmed Elmi was living there too. Maybe it was some kind of unconventional arrangement. Kennedy pulled out more records except Ahmed Elmi's address during this same period according to his North Dakota State University enrollment records was in Fargo, North Dakota. He was a student at NDSU from 2009 to 2012. The university has him living in student housing and later in an off-campus apartment in North Dakota, not Minnesota. He displayed the university records. So, Representative Omar married Ahmed Elmi in London. He moved to North Dakota for school. She moved back to Minnesota and continued living with Ahmed Hirsi and their children. And yet, she was legally married to Ahmed Elmi, not Ahmed Hirsi. Kennedy paused, letting the timeline sink in. Now, let's move forward to 2011. He pointed to the next entry. 2011. Representative Omar and Ahmed Elmi purchase a home together in Minneapolis. They're listed as co-owners on the deed. They take out a mortgage together. They're legally married. So, this makes sense, right? Except Kennedy displayed the property records. The address they list on the mortgage application is different from where either of them was actually living. Ahmed Elmi lists his address as the North Dakota State University campus. Ilhan Omar lists an address that property records show was actually occupied by Ahmed Hirsi. They bought a house together, but neither of them lived in it. According to property records and utility bills, the house they purchased was rented out to tenants. They were landlords together while living in separate states and while Omar continued living with Hirsi. Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio leaned forward. Special Counsel Kennedy, just to clarify, she was legally married to Elmi, owned property with Elmi but was living with her. That's correct. Congressman Jordan, for the entire period she was legally married to Ahmed Elmi. 2009 to 2017 she was living with Ahmed Hirsi and having more children with him. Kennedy displayed birth certificates. In 2012, Representative Omar gave birth to a 3rd child. The birth certificate lists Ahmed Hirsi as the father. She was still legally married to Ahmed Elmi at this time. So just to keep track. Legally married to Ahmed Elm. Living with Ahmed Hirsi. Having children with Ahmed Hirsi. Owning property with Ahmed Elmi. Filing taxes with Ahmed Elmi. We'll get to that tomorrow. Presenting herself publicly as Ahmed Hirsi's partner. Kennedy walked back to his table and pulled out what appeared to be social media posts. And here's where it gets even stranger. Throughout the period, she was legally married to Ahmed Elmi. Representative Omar posted on social media about her relationship with Ahmed Hirsi. Let me show you some examples. He displayed Facebook and Instagram posts on the screen. March 2011. Representative Omar posts a photo with Ahmed Hirsi with the caption, "My love and I at the park with the kids. Blessed family." July 2012. Photo of her pregnant with Ahmed Hirsi. Caption, "Can't wait to meet our new baby." December 2013. Family photo with Ahmed Hirsi and 3 children. Caption, "My husband and our beautiful children. Alhamdulillah." She's calling Ahmed Hirsi her husband on social media while being legally married to Ahmed Elmi. She's posting family photos with Hirsi and their children while being legally married to someone else. Kennedy let that sink in. Now, you might be thinking, maybe she forgot she was married to Elmi. Maybe it was a mistake. He pulled out more documents except she was filing joint tax returns with Ahmed Elmi during this entire period. You don't forget who you're filing taxes with. We're going to get into the tax fraud in detail on day 3. But I want to establish now that she was actively filing as married to Elmi while publicly presenting as married to her C. Let's move to 2017. Kennedy displayed another set of documents. 2017. Representative Omar legally divorces Ahmed Elmi. This is a real divorce from a real marriage. The divorce is filed in Minnesota. Finalized in November 2017. The divorce papers are interesting. They claimed the marriage had been irretrievably broken since 2011. Remember, 2011 is when they bought a house together. So they bought a house together when the marriage was already irretrievably broken. The divorce also states there are no children from the marriage and no assets to divide except the property they'd purchased, which had been sold in 2016. So after 8 years of being legally married to Ahmed Elmi while living with Ahmed, her C. Representative Omar finally divorces Elmi. Kennedy pulled out another marriage certificate. 2018. 1 year after divorcing, Ahmed Elmi Representative Omar legally marries Ahmed Hersi. Remember, Hersi is the man she had a faith marriage with in 2002. Had 3 children with, lived with continuously from 2002 to 2018. But was never legally married to until 2018. So let's review the complete timeline. 2002 faith marriage to Hersi. 2009 legal marriage to Elmi while still in relationship with Hersi. 2009 to 2017 legally married to Elmi. Living with Hersi. Having children with Hersi. 2017 divorce from Elmi. 2018 legal marriage to Hersi. 16 years after faith marriage. This is the marital history Representative Omar has acknowledged publicly. And just based on these facts she doesn't dispute, we can identify several legal problems. Kennedy began counting on his fingers. Problem 1. She filed for divorce from someone she claims she was never legally married to. That's filing false documents. Problem 2. She filed joint tax returns with someone she wasn't legally married to, or she filed joint returns with Elmi while living with her C. Either way, that's tax fraud. Problem 3. She publicly represented herself as married to her C while being legally married to Elmi. That's fraud. Problem 4. She had children with her C while married to Elmi. In many states, children born during a marriage are legally presumed to be the husband's children. Her third child should legally be Elm's child. But she listed her C. That's false documentation. And all of this is just what we can prove from her own statements and public records. We haven't even gotten to the biggest question yet. He paused dramatically. The question you're all wondering about. The question that's been asked for years. The question that Representative Omar has called a disgusting lie and a conspiracy theory. Who is Ahmed Elmi and why did she marry him? Kennedy looked directly at Omar and her legal team. Representative Omar has been asked repeatedly whether Ahmed Elmi is her brother. She's denied it. She's called it slander. She's accused anyone who asks the question of racism and Islamophobia. But tomorrow, I'm going to present DNA evidence, British Public Record School documents, and testimony from multiple witnesses that will prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Ahmed nor say Elmi is Ilhan Omar's biological brother and that she married her brother to commit immigration fraud, to help him obtain U.S. residency, to fraudulently claim education benefits, and to falsify federal documents. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a federal crime. And tomorrow, I'm going to prove it. The chamber erupted into chaos. Democrats were shouting objections. Republicans were demanding order. Media was frantically reporting. And Ilhan Omar sat frozen at the witness table. Her lawyers huddled around her, whispering frantically. Speaker Johnson gave the hearing to a close. This hearing is adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow. Special Counsel Kennedy will present day 2 of his investigation at that time. Kennedy gathered his files calmly. He'd laid the foundation. He'd established the pattern. He'd proven the marriages were fraudulent just based on the timeline alone. But tomorrow would be the bombshell. Tomorrow he would prove brother marriage. And Representative Ilhan Omar's career would be over. The House chamber was even more packed on day 2. International media, experts on immigration law, members from both parties who'd skipped day 1 now present to see the promised DNA evidence. The tension was palpable. Ilhan Omar sat at the witness table with 4 lawyers now instead of 3. She looked tense but defiant. Having spent the previous evening on Twitter calling Kennedy a racist and the investigation a modern-day lynching. Kennedy walked in carrying a single file folder and the same yellow legal pad. He nodded politely to Speaker Johnson, took his place at the podium, and waited for the room to quiet. "Good morning. Yesterday I presented the timeline of Representative Omar's marriages. The multiple marriages, the overlapping relationships, the contradictory legal filings. Today I'm going to answer the question everyone has been asking. Who is Ahmed Noor, said Elmi, and why did Omar marry him? I'm going to present evidence in 4 categories. British public records, DNA analysis, witness testimony, and photographic evidence. By the time I'm done, you will know beyond any reasonable doubt that Ahmed Noor Sayed Elmi is Ilhan Omar's biological brother." He pulled out his first exhibit. Let's start with British public records because that's where the paper trail begins. Kennedy displayed documents on the screen. Official forms with the seal of the United Kingdom Home Office. In 1995, a family arrived in the United Kingdom seeking asylum from Somalia. The father was Noor Mohammed. The mother was Faduma Abubakar Hussein. They had several children. According to Home Office records which I obtained through official channels under UK public records law, the children registered with UK immigration authorities were Layla Noura Elmi daughter, Ahmed Noura Elmi son, Ilhan Noor Said Elmi daughter, Khalid Noor Sahed Elmi son. Kennedy pointed to the names. Notice the naming pattern. In Somali culture, children traditionally take their father's given name as their surname. All 4 children share the same father's name in their surname, Noor Elmi. Now, Representative Omar has stated publicly that her father's name is Noor Omar Mohammed. And all 4 of these children have Noor as the first part of their surname. That's consistent with them being siblings, children of the same father. He displayed school enrollment records. British school records from 1995 to 1997 showed 3 of these children enrolled in schools in London. Ahmed Noor Say Elmi enrolled at Hackney Community School. Ilhan Noor Said Al-Mi enrolled at the same school. Khalid Noor Elmi enrolled at the same school. The enrollment forms list the same home address for all 3 children. 47 Crossway, Stoke, Newington, London. The enrollment forms list the same parents for all 3 children, Noor Omar Mohammed, and Faduma Abubakar Hussein. The forms list all 3 children as siblings. Kennedy displayed the actual enrollment forms with names and addresses visible. Now, Representative Omar has acknowledged that she lived in London from 1995 to 1997 before coming to the United States. She's acknowledged that her father is Noor Omar Mohammed. What she hasn't acknowledged is that Ahmed Elmi, the man she later married, was living in the same household, enrolled in the same school, and listed as her brother on official UK government records. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez interjected, special counsel names can be similar. Many Somali families share naming patterns. This doesn't prove. You're absolutely right, Congresswoman. Kennedy interrupted politely. Names alone don't prove anything. That's why we have DNA evidence. He held up a sealed envelope marked with chain of custody documentation. Which brings me to the second category of evidence. Kennedy opened the envelope carefully and pulled out a laboratory report. In the course of this investigation, I obtained court authorization to compel DNA samples from Ahmed Elmi and to acquire a DNA sample from Representative Omar. The samples were analyzed by Orchid Cellmark, one of the leading DNA testing laboratories in the United States, which is used by the FBI and Department of Justice for criminal cases. The laboratory compared genetic markers between the 2 samples. Let me read from their report. He adjusted his reading glasses. Analysis of autosomal DNA markers shows that the 2 individuals tested share approximately 49.7% of their genetic material. This is consistent with a full sibling relationship. The probability of sibling is 99.94%. The probability that these individuals are first-degree relatives, parent-child, full siblings versus unrelated individuals is greater than 10.000 to 1. Kennedy looked up. For those of you who aren't familiar with DNA analysis, let me explain what that means. Humans share about 99.9% of their DNA with all other humans. That's what makes us the same species. But the 0.1% variation is what makes each person unique. Full siblings share approximately 50% of that variable DNA because they inherit it from the same parents. Half-siblings share about 25%. First cousins share about 12.5%. Ahmed Elmi and Ilhan Omar share 49.7% of their variable DNA. That's consistent with full siblings. The probability is 99.94%, essentially certain. They are brother and sister. The chamber erupted. Democrats were shouting objections about privacy violations. Republicans were demanding Omar be arrested immediately. Media was in absolute chaos. Speaker Johnson gabbled for order. The chamber will come to order. Special Counsel Kennedy, continue your presentation. Kennedy nodded and pulled out more documents. Now, I anticipated that Representative Omar's legal team would challenge the DNA evidence. So, I had the samples independently tested by a second laboratory, Body Technology in Virginia, which handles DNA analysis for the Department of Defense. Bodied results: 49.6% 6% shared DNA, 99.93% probability of full sibling relationship. Two separate laboratories, same conclusion. Ahmed Elmi and Ilhan Omar are biological siblings. He set down the laboratory reports. But let's say you don't trust DNA evidence. Let's say you think there's some kind of conspiracy or mistake. That's why I have witness testimony. Kennedy gestured to his chief investigator, who brought forward the first witness, an elderly Somali woman who was sworn in. Please state your name for the record. Khadija Hassan. Ms. Hassan, how do you know the Omar family? I was neighbor to them in London 1995 to 1997. We lived in same building in Stoke Newington. Did you know Noor Omar Muhammad and his family? Yes, very well. Our children played together. Can you describe the family? Noor Omar, his wife, Faduma, and their children. There was Layla, the oldest daughter, Ahmed, the oldest son, Ilhan, the second daughter, and Khalid, the younger son. Kennedy displayed a chart with the 4 names. These 4 children, did they live together as siblings? Yes, they were brothers and sisters. Everyone in the community knew this. Did you ever see Ahmed and Ilhan together? Many times they played together as children. Ahmed was protective of his younger sister. He would walk her to school. Kennedy pulled out a photograph. Clearly old, slightly faded. Ms. Hassan, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 27. Do you recognize the people in this photograph? The witness looked at the photo and smiled. Yes, that is the Omar family. That's Noor Omar and Faduma with their children. That's Layla, Ahmed, Ilhan, and Khalid. This was taken at community gathering in 1996. Kennedy entered the photograph into evidence and displayed it on screen. It showed a Somali family, parents with 4 children. The children looked to be ranging from about 14 to about 8 years old. Ms. Hassan, can you point to Ahmed and Ilhan in this photograph? She pointed to 2 of the children. That is Ahmed the son. That is Ilhan the daughter. They are brother and sister. Thank you, Ms. Hassan. No further questions. Representative Rashida Tlaib stood up. I object to this entire line of questioning. This witness is being used to perpetuate racist conspiracy theories. Speaker Johnson cut her off. Congresswoman Clay, this is not a trial where you have the right to object. This is an investigative presentation. You'll have opportunity to respond later. Sit down. Kennedy called his next witness, a British school teacher who taught at Hackney Community School in 1996. Mr. Davies, did you have Ahmed Elmi and Ilhan Elmi in your class? Yes. In 1996. They were siblings, different ages, different grade levels, but I taught both of them. How do you know they were siblings? The enrollment records listed them as brother and sister. They had the same parents on file and behaviorally they acted like siblings. Ahmed was protective of Ilhan. They'd wait for each other after school. Typical sibling behavior. Kennedy thanked him and called his third witness, a woman who'd worked at the UK Home Office Immigration Services in the 1990s. Ms. Morrison, did you process the Omar family's asylum application? Yes, I remember them because they had a complicated case. Multiple children, urgent humanitarian situation. According to the records you processed, were Ahmed Elmi and Ilhan Elmi siblings? Yes, they were listed as brother and sister on all official documentation. Same parents, same family unit. Kennedy dismissed the witness and turned back to the chamber. 3 witnesses all confirming the same basic facts. Ahmed Elmi and Ilhan Omar are biological siblings who grew up together in the same household with the same parents. But let me show you one more piece of evidence. Photographic evidence that's been publicly available but largely ignored. Kennedy displayed a series of photographs on screen. These are photographs from Ahmed Elmi's social media accounts which were public until approximately 2016 when they were deleted. However, archived copies exist. This first photo is from 2009, around the time Representative Omar married Ahmed Elmi. The photo shows Ahmed Elmi with a woman identified in the caption as "my sister." That woman is Ilhan Omar. He showed several more photos. This photo from 2010. Ahmed Elmi with Ilhan Omar and other family members at what appears to be a family gathering. Caption: "Family time with my siblings." This photo from 2011. Ahmed Elmi posting a throwback photo from their childhood in London with the caption, "Throwback to London days with my sisters and brother." Ahmed Elmi himself referred to Ilhan Omar as his sister on multiple occasions on social media before those accounts were deleted. Kennedy displayed yearbook photos. These are from Hackney Community School Yearbook 1996. Here's Ahmed Elmi's photo. Here's Ilhan Elmi's photo. They're listed as siblings in the school's family directory. He turned to face Omar directly. "Representative Omar, you've called the allegation that you married your brother a conspiracy theory. You've called it disgusting lies. You've accused anyone who asked about it of Islamophobia and racism. But I've now presented British public records listing you and Ahmed Elmi as siblings. DNA evidence proving 99.94% probability you are full siblings. 3 witnesses who knew you as children and confirm your siblings. Photographs showing Ahmed Elmi calling you his sister. School records listing you as siblings. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is documented fact. Ahmed Noor say Elmi is your brother and you married him." The chamber was in chaos again. Kennedy raised his voice to be heard. "Now let me address the question everyone is asking. Why? Why would someone marry their own brother? The answer is immigration fraud." He pulled out more documents. In 2009, Ahmed Elmi was living in the United Kingdom on a Somali passport. He wanted to come to the United States to attend college. But getting a student visa for a Somali national is difficult and takes time. However, if Ahmed Elmi married a US citizen, he could get a much faster path to permanent residency through a marriage visa. Ilhan Omar became a US citizen in 2000. By 2009, she could sponsor a spouse for immigration, so they got married in London. A legal marriage that would be recognized by US immigration authorities. Ahmed Elmi could then apply for a marriage-based visa to enter the United States. Let me show you the immigration timeline. Kennedy displayed another chart. February 2009, marriage in London. June 2009, Ahmed Elmi applies for US visa listing Ilhan Omar as spouse. August 2009, visa approved. September 2009, Ahmed Elmi enters United States. October 2009, Ahmed Elmi enrolls at North Dakota State University. The marriage gave him the visa. The visa gave him entry. The entry gave him access to US colleges and eventually permanent residency. That's immigration fraud. That's marriage fraud. And that's a federal felony. Kennedy pulled out the relevant statute. Title 8, United States Code Section 1825. Any individual who knowingly enters into a marriage for the purpose of evading immigration laws is guilty of immigration fraud. Punishable by up to 5 years in federal prison. Title 18, United States Code Section 1546. Any individual who knowingly makes false statements in immigration documents is guilty of visa fraud, punishable by up to 10 years in federal prison. Representative Omar married her brother to get him into the country. That's not a cultural misunderstanding. That's not a religious practice. That's fraud and it's illegal. Representative Jim Jordan stood up. Special Counsel Kennedy, if what you're saying is true, why has Representative Omar never been prosecuted for this? Kennedy smiled grimly. That's an excellent question, Congressman Jordan, and the answer is political protection. For years, anyone who raised questions about this was immediately labeled a racist or Islamophobe. The media refused to investigate. Democratic leadership protected her. Law enforcement was afraid to touch it because of the political sensitivity. But this is a House investigation, not a popularity contest. We follow evidence, not politics, and the evidence is overwhelming. He organized his papers. Let me summarize what we've proven today. 1. British public records from 1995 to 1997 list Ahmed Elmi and Ilhan Omar as biological siblings with the same parents. 2. DNA evidence from 2 separate laboratories shows 99.94% probability they are full siblings. 3. 3 witnesses who knew them in the UK confirm they are brother and sister. 4. Photographic evidence shows Ahmed Elm referring to Ilhan Omar as his sister. 5. The timing of their marriage in 2009 directly coincides with Ahmed Elmi's application for U.S. entry. 6. Ahmed Elmi used the marriage to obtain a visa and enter the United States. She married her brother to commit immigration fraud. That's the fact. That's the evidence. And that's the crime. Kennedy paused, then continued more quietly. Now, I know some of you are uncomfortable with this. You're thinking this seems so outlandish. Could someone really marry their own brother? Could a member of Congress really have committed such obvious fraud? The answer is yes, because she thought she'd never get caught. She thought the political protection would last forever. She thought anyone who asked questions would be shut down. But tomorrow, I'm going to show you that the brother marriage wasn't the only fraud. Because while she was married to her brother, she was also committing tax fraud, student loan fraud, and campaign finance fraud. She was making money off this scheme. And all of that is documented. He closed his folder. We've proven the brother marriage. Tomorrow we're going to prove the financial crimes. And by the time we're done, you'll understand that Representative Ilhan Omar isn't just a fraud. She's a criminal enterprise. Speaker Johnson adjourned the hearing. The chamber cleared slowly, everyone stunned by the mountain of evidence presented. Ilhan Omar sat at the witness table surrounded by lawyers. Her head down. The DNA evidence was irrefutable. The witnesses were credible. The photographs were damning. The brother marriage was proven. And tomorrow, Kennedy would show how she profited from it. Day 3 began with the different atmosphere in the chamber. The DNA evidence from Day 2 had shaken even Omar's strongest defenders. Some Democrats who'd loudly denounced the investigation on Day 1 were notably absent on Day 3. Others sat quietly, no longer willing to defend the indefensible. Kennedy walked in with a banker's box full of documents. Tax returns, financial records, loan applications, bank statements. He set the box on his table with a heavy thud that echoed through the silent chamber. Good morning. For the past 2 days, I presented evidence of Representative Omar's fraudulent marriages, the overlapping relationships, the brother marriage, the immigration fraud. Today, I'm going to show you how she profited financially from these crimes. This isn't just about lying. This is about money. Specifically, this is about using fraudulent marriages to commit tax fraud, student loan fraud, and campaign finance violations. And it's all documented in federal records. And he pulled out his first stack of documents. Let's start with tax fraud because that's the simplest to prove. Kennedy displayed tax returns on screen with some personal information redacted, but the key details visible. These are Representative Omar's federal tax returns for the years 2009 through 2015 obtained through lawful subpoena. Let me walk you through what they show. 2009 to 2010. Representative Omar files as single. This is accurate because she divorced Ahmed Hersi. Though we've established that divorce was fraudulent since they were never legally married and had just married Ahmed Elmi. But filing as single when you're married is interesting. 2011 first joint return with Ahmed Elmi. They file as married filing jointly. This gives them certain tax advantages. Larger standard deduction, better tax brackets, various credits only available to married couples. 2012 to 2015. Continued joint filing with Ahmed Elmi. Now, filing jointly when you're married is perfectly legal except for one problem. Kennedy displayed a different set of documents. These are property tax records, utility bills, and lease agreements for the period 2011 to 2015. They show that during the entire time Representative Omar was filing joint tax returns with Ahmed Elmi, they were living at different addresses. 2011 Omar's listed address on utility bills 3140 17th Avenue, South Minneapolis. Ahmed Elmi's address on student records North Dakota State University Campus Fargo. 2012 Omar's address same Minneapolis locations address 8th Street North Fargo. 2010 Omar's address still Minneapolis. Elm's address still Fargo. They weren't just living in different cities. They were living in different states. For the entire period, they filed joint tax returns. Representative Jim Jordan interrupted. Special counsel married couples can live apart for work or school reasons. That's not inherently fraudulent. You're absolutely right, Congressman. Kennedy agreed. But let me show you what else was happening during this period. He pulled out more documents. Photographs, affidavit, social media posts. While Representative Omar was filing joint tax returns with Ahmed Elmi claiming to be a married couple, she was actually living with Ahmed Hirsi and their children. These utility bills for the Minneapolis address show both Ilhan Omar and Ahmed Hirsi listed as residents. These photographs from social media show Omar and Hirsi at that address with their children. These neighbor affidavit confirm that Omar and Hirsi lived together as a couple throughout this entire period. So, let me lay out what was actually happening. Legally married to Ahmed Elmi. Filing joint tax returns with Elmi. Claiming married couple benefits. Actually living with Ahmed Hirsi in Minneapolis. Having children with Hirsi while married to Elmi. Presenting publicly as Hirsi's partner while filing taxes with Elmi. She was getting the tax benefits of being married to Elmi while actually living with Hirsi. That's tax fraud. Kennedy pulled out an IRS manual. According to IRS regulations, when you file jointly, you're supposed to be functioning as a genuine married couple sharing a household, pooling resources, living as an economic unit. You can't just file jointly with someone you're married to on paper while actually maintaining a separate household and relationship with someone else. But that's exactly what Representative Omar did. He displayed more financial records. And it gets worse. On these joint tax returns with Elmi, they claimed deductions for mortgage interest on the property they purchased together in Minneapolis. The property we discussed on day one. But neither of them actually lived in that property. It was rented to tenants. So they took a mortgage interest deduction for a home neither of them lived in. That's another false deduction. They also claimed educational credits for Elmi's college expenses at North Dakota State University. Educational credits are designed to help families afford higher education. But Omar and Elmi weren't functioning as a genuine married couple. They were brother and sister in a fraudulent marriage. Using that fraudulent marriage to claim tax credits is fraud upon fraud. Kennedy pulled out a calculation sheet. I had a forensic accountant review these tax returns. The false deductions and credits Representative Omar claimed by filing jointly with Ahmed Elmi while actually maintaining a separate household with Ahmed Hirsi total approximately $41 in inappropriate tax benefits over 5 years. That's $41 she obtained through fraudulent tax filings. And that's just the federal returns. Minnesota state returns show similar problems. Representative Nancy Mace spoke up. Special Counsel Kennedy, did the IRS ever audit these returns? No, Congresswoman. The IRS generally doesn't audit unless there are clear red flags or someone reports suspicious activity. And who was going to report it? She was the only one who knew she was filing jointly with her brother while living with someone else. Kennedy organized his tax documents. But the tax fraud isn't the only financial crime. Let's talk about student loan fraud. Kennedy pulled out education records. Ahmed Elmi attended North Dakota State University from 2009 to 2012. According to university records, his tuition and fees were paid through a combination of student loans and grants. Now, there are different types of student financial aid. Some is based on merit. Some is based on financial need. The need-based aid requires you to demonstrate that you can't afford to pay for college without assistance. Ahmed Elmi applied for need-based financial aid. He received federal Pell Grants, which are reserved for students with demonstrated financial hardship. He received subsidized federal loans, which have better interest rates for students who can't afford unsubsidized loans. To qualify for these benefits, you have to fill out a FAFSA-free application for federal student aid. The FAFSA asks about your income, your assets, and if you're married, your spouse's income and assets. Kennedy displayed FAFSA forms. These are Ahmed Elmi FAFSA forms for academic years 2009 to 2010. 2010, 2011, and 20,112. On the 2,009,200 FAFSA filed in early 2009 before his marriage to Omar. He lists himself as single with minimal income. He qualifies for maximum Pell Grant and subsidized loans. That's legitimate. But on the 2010 to 2011 FAFSA filed in early 2010 after his marriage to Omar, he still lists himself as single. He doesn't report being married. He doesn't report a spouse's income. This allows him to continue receiving maximum financial aid based on his income alone. Same with 2011 to 2012 FOSA. Married to Omar, filing joint tax returns with Omar but claiming to be single on financial aid applications. Kennedy pulled out the relevant regulations. Federal financial aid regulations require that if you're married, you must report your spouse's income on the FOSA. This is because financial aid is supposed to be based on household resources, not just individual income. If Ahmed Elmi had properly reported being married to Ilhan Omar and reported her income, his financial need would have been much lower. He likely wouldn't have qualified for Pell Grants or subsidized loans. He'd have had to pay more for college out of pocket or take unsubsidized loans with higher interest rates. But by lying on his FOSA claiming to be single when he was married, he fraudulently obtained financial aid he didn't qualify for. Representative Jim Jordan asked special counsel, "How much money are we talking about?" According to Education Department records, Ahmed Elmi received approximately $4 in federal Pell Grants and $48 in subsidized federal loans between 2009 and 2012. If he had properly reported being married and reported his spouse's income, he would have qualified for approximately $12 in unsubsidized loans only. So he obtained roughly 90.000 ERS in financial aid he wasn't eligible for through false statements on federal applications. That's felony fraud under Title 20 United States Code Section 1097, making false statements to obtain federal student aid punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Kennedy set down the FOSA forms. And here's the question. Did Ilhan Omar know about this fraud? Did she participate in it? He pulled out more documents. These are joint tax returns she filed with Ahmed Elmi during the same years he was falsely claiming to be single on financial aid applications. On their joint tax return for 2010, they report being married, but on his FOSA for the 2010-2011 school year, he claims to be single. Representative Omar signed those joint tax returns. She knew they were married. She knew they were filing as a married couple. But Ahmed Elmi was simultaneously telling the Department of Education he was single. Either she knew about the FOSA fraud and participated in it, or she was so negligent she didn't notice her husband was claiming to be single on federal forms while they were filing joint tax returns. Either way, she was involved. Kennedy pulled out his final set of documents. Now, let's talk about campaign finance violations. Because the fraudulent marriage didn't just benefit Ahmed Elmi's immigration and education. It also affected Representative Omar's campaign finances. In 2016, Representative Omar ran for Minnesota House of Representatives. In 2018, she ran for U.S. Congress. Both campaigns filed financial disclosure forms with the Federal Election Commission. Campaign finance law requires candidates to disclose personal financial information, income sources, assets, liabilities. This is to prevent conflicts of interest and ensure transparency. Let me show you what Representative Omar disclosed and what she didn't disclose. Kennedy displayed FEC forms. On her 2016 campaign disclosure, Representative Omar reports being separated from Ahmed Elmi, but doesn't disclose that she's still legally married to him. She also doesn't disclose the jointly owned property in Minneapolis. Federal law requires you to disclose your spouse's income and any jointly owned property. By claiming to be separated without disclosing that she was still legally married and still owned property jointly, she avoided proper disclosure. He pulled out more forms on her 2018 congressional campaign disclosure. She reports being married to Ahmed Hersi, but at the time of this filing, early 2018, she was still legally married to Ahmed Elmi. She wouldn't divorce Elmi until later in 2018. So, she's reporting being married to Hersi when she's actually married to Elmi. That's a false statement on a federal campaign finance form. She's also failing to disclose income from the rental property she owns with Elmi. Jointly owned property that generates income must be disclosed. She didn't disclose it. Kennedy displayed a summary chart. Let me show you the campaign finance timeline 2016. Still legally married to Elmi. Files campaign disclosure claiming separated. Fails to disclose jointly owned property. Fails to disclose Elmi's income. Violation of disclosure requirements. Early 2018. Still legally married to Elmi. Files campaign disclosure claiming married to Hersi. Still fails to disclose joint property with Elmi. False statement on federal form. Late 2018. Divorces. Elmi marries her C. Finally files accurate disclosure. She filed false campaign finance disclosures for at least 2 years, hiding her actual marital status and financial interests. Representative Raja Krishna Mori spoke up. Special counsel. What's the penalty for false statements on FEC forms? Title 52. United States Code Section 30109. Knowingly filing false statements on campaign finance forms is punishable by fines up to $50 and up to 5 years in federal prison. The FEC can also impose civil penalties and require disgorgement of campaign funds. But the real issue isn't just the technical violation. It's the pattern. Representative Omar filed false tax returns, false financial aid applications, and false campaign disclosures, all to hide the same fraudulent marriage and the financial benefits she was getting from it. Kennedy organized all his financial documents. Let me summarize the financial crimes we've documented today. Tax fraud. 5 years of fraudulent joint returns while living separately. False deductions totaling $41. Claiming married benefits while maintaining separate household. Student loan fraud. 3 years of false FAFSA forms. $90 in fraudulently obtained financial aid. Lying about marital status on federal applications. Campaign finance fraud. Multiple false disclosure forms. Hiding true marital status. Failing to disclose jointly owned property. Lying on federal campaign documents. Total financial benefit from fraudulent marriage. Approximately $131. These aren't technicalities. These aren't cultural misunderstandings. These are deliberate, systematic fraud schemes designed to obtain money and benefits through false statements on federal forms. And all of it stems from the original crime, marrying her brother to commit immigration fraud. Kennedy paused, letting the numbers sink in. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you what happened when people started asking questions about these crimes. I'm going to show you how Representative Omar lied repeatedly, made false statements to media, and potentially committed perjury, because the cover-up is often worse than the crime. And in this case, the cover-up lasted for years. He closed his folders. We've proven the fraudulent marriages. We've proven the brother marriage. We've proven the financial fraud. Tomorrow, we prove the lies. The chamber was quieter on day 4. Many of Omar's former defenders had stopped showing up. Even progressive media outlets that had dismissed the investigation as a racist conspiracy theory were now reporting more carefully, acknowledging that serious evidence has been presented. Ilhan Omar sat at the witness table with only 2 lawyers. Now, several had apparently withdrawn from her case. She looked exhausted, her earlier defiance replaced with resignation. Kennedy walked in carrying a laptop and a stack of printed transcripts. He sat them down and addressed the chamber. Good morning. For 3 days, I presented evidence of crimes, fraudulent marriages, immigration fraud, tax fraud, student loan fraud, campaign finance violations. Today, I'm going to show you what Representative Omar did when people started asking questions about these crimes. She lied over and over again to media, to constituents, to fellow members of Congress, and potentially under oath. Let me walk you through the lies chronologically because the pattern of deception is as important as the individual falsehoods. Kennedy displayed what appeared to be a blog post from 2016. In August 2016, during her Minnesota House campaign, a conservative blog published allegations about the brother marriage. The blog presented some of the same evidence I've shown you. British records, social media posts, marriage licenses. Representative Omar's campaign issued a statement. Let me read it. These allegations are absurd and offensive. They are rooted in xenophobia and Islamophobia. Ahmed Elmi is not my brother. We were married for personal reasons that I will not discuss publicly. The suggestion that I would marry a family member is disgusting and has no basis. In fact, that statement is false. Ahmed Elmi is her brother. We've proven it with DNA evidence, British public records witness testimony and photographs. She knew it was false when she said it. That's a lie. Kennedy pulled out more statements from September 2016 interview with local Minneapolis TV station. She was asked directly, "Is Ahmed Elmi your brother?" Her response, "No, that's a completely false accusation with no evidence supporting it. That's a lie." There was plenty of evidence even in 2016 British record school documents social media. She had access to the same evidence I presented. She knew the allegation was true. She lied anyway. Kennedy displayed video footage from Omar's 2018 congressional campaign. During her 2018 campaign for U.S. Congress, the brother marriage allegations resurfaced. Media outlets asked about them. Opponents raised them. And Representative Omar continued lying. October 2018 campaign debate. She was asked, "Did you marry your brother to help him immigrate to the United States?" Her response, "These conspiracy theories have been repeatedly debunked. I married Ahmed Elmi in a difficult period of my life. The marriage ended in divorce. I've moved on and Americans should focus on real issues." Notice the technique. She doesn't actually deny it. She calls it a conspiracy theory and says it's been debunked. But by whom? Based on what evidence? She's implying it's false without explicitly saying it's false. That's a lawyer-coached answer. But it's still misleading because she knows it's true. Kennedy pulled out more examples. November 2018 interview with the Washington Post reporter. "Can you definitively state that Ahmed Elmi is not your brother?" Omar, "I can definitively state that the people pushing this conspiracy theory are motivated by anti-Muslim bigotry. They want to delegitimize me because I'm a Somali refugee, a Muslim woman, and a progressive. I won't dignify their racism with detailed responses." Again, notice she doesn't actually answer the question. She attacks the questioner's motives. But she doesn't say, "No, he's not my brother." Because she can't, because he is. Kennedy pulled out congressional records. In February 2019, Representative Omar was sworn in as a member of the U.S. Congress. As part of the oath of office, members swear to uphold the Constitution and to faithfully discharge their duties. In March 2019, during the closed-door Democratic caucus meeting, according to multiple members who were present, the brother marriage allegations came up. Several Democratic members asked Omar directly if the allegations were true. According to witnesses who provided statements to this investigation, Representative Omar told her colleagues, "These are lies being spread by right-wing media. There is no truth to any of it. I've answered these questions repeatedly. Can we please focus on our legislative agenda?" That's a lie told directly to fellow members of Congress in a private setting where she thought there would be no record. But several members took notes and they provided those notes to this investigation. He displayed what appeared to be handwritten notes. These notes from Representative Redacted, who was present at the meeting, asked Omar directly about brother marriage allegations. She denied everything, said it's all lies, seemed convincing. Maybe we should defend her more publicly. Representative Omar convinced her colleagues that the allegations were false. Based on that, many of them defended her publicly. They attacked journalists who investigated the story. They called critics racist. She lied to them and they, acting in good faith, repeated those lies. Kennedy pulled out legal documents. In July 2019, a Minnesota ethics complaint was filed regarding Representative Omar's campaign finances and the marriage situation. As part of the investigation, Representative Omar submitted a sworn statement to the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board. In that statement, she was asked to explain the financial arrangements with Ahmed Elmi. Let me read from her sworn response. "I was never in a fraudulent marriage with Ahmed Elmi. Our marriage was entered into for personal reasons and ended when we grew apart. At no time did we marry for immigration purposes, financial gain, or any improper reason. I have always been truthful about my relationships and have complied with all applicable laws." That statement is false. We've proven the marriage was fraudulent. We've proven it was for immigration purposes. Elmi used it to get a visa. We've proven there was financial gain, tax benefits, student aid fraud. We've proven she wasn't truthful. She lied repeatedly about the relationship. And this statement was made under oath, under penalty of perjury. That's not just a lie. That's perjury, a federal crime under Title 18, United States Code Section 1621, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Kennedy displayed a compilation of video clips between 2.000 TT. Representative Omar continued to deny the allegations when asked. Let me show you a few examples. 2020 CNN interview. "Have you married your brother?" "Of course not. That's a disgusting smear with no basis." In fact, 2021 MSNBC. "There's DNA evidence suggesting Ahmed Elmi is your biological brother." I don't respond to conspiracy theories. The people pushing this should be ashamed. Twitter post. The brother marriage lie has been debunked by every credible fact checker. People who continue spreading it are motivated by hate. 2023 speech on House floor. I have been subjected to vicious lies and attacks because of my identity. The false allegation that I married a family member is among the most hurtful and baseless. Every single one of these statements is false. The allegation isn't baseless. We have DNA evidence, British records, witnesses, photographs. It hasn't been debunked. It's been proven. The people investigating it aren't motivated by hate. They're motivated by evidence. She lied in 2016. She lied in 2018. She lied in 2019. She lied in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. For 8 years, she maintained the same false story. Kennedy organized his materials and addressed the chamber directly. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be very clear about what we're seeing here. This isn't someone who made a mistake and then tried to correct it. This isn't someone who misunderstood a question or misspoke. This is someone who committed multiple federal crimes and then spent 8 years systematically lying to cover them up. She lied to voters during her campaigns. She lied to media when they investigated. She lied to fellow members of Congress in private meetings. She lied under oath in sworn statements. She lied on Twitter to millions of followers. She lied on the House floor. And every time someone presented evidence, she didn't address the evidence. She attacked the person presenting it. She called them racist. She called them Islamophobic. She wrapped herself in victimhood and made the story about bigotry rather than fraud. That's not defending yourself. That's manipulation. That's using identity politics as a shield against accountability. Kennedy pulled out one final document. And here's the most cynical part. Representative Omar didn't just lie to protect herself. She used those lies to fundraise. This is an email her campaign sent in August 2020. I'm being attacked by right-wing conspiracy theorists who claim I married my brother. These racist lies are designed to delegitimize my voice in Congress. I need your help fighting back against this hate. Please donate $50, $100 or whatever you can afford to help me combat these smears. She raised approximately $2.3 million from small-dollar donors in 2020 by claiming to be the victim of racist smears. But the smears were true. She was committing fraud and she used lies about that fraud to raise money from people who thought they were defending her against bigotry. That's not just lying. That's profiting from lies. That's fraud upon fraud upon fraud. Kennedy closed his laptop and faced the chamber. Tomorrow is the final day of this investigation. Tomorrow I will present my complete report, summarize all the evidence, and make my formal recommendation to this body. But I'll tell you now what that recommendation will be. Representative Ilhan Omar should be expelled from Congress and she should be prosecuted for immigration fraud, marriage fraud, tax fraud, student loan fraud, campaign finance violations, perjury, and making false statements. She committed crimes. She lied about those crimes for 8 years. She attacked anyone who questioned her. She used her position to avoid accountability. That cannot stand. In America, we are all equal under the law. And if a sitting member of Congress can commit fraud and lie about it with impunity, then we don't have a justice system. We have a joke. He sat down. The chamber was silent. Even Omar's remaining defenders had nothing to say. The evidence of systematic lying was too clear. The pattern too obvious. Tomorrow, Kennedy would present his final verdict. And everyone knew what it would be. The final day of the investigation brought the largest crowd yet. Every member of Congress present. International media, legal experts, immigrant advocacy groups on both sides. The gallery completely full. Ilhan Omar sat alone at the witness table. Her lawyers had withdrawn overnight. She had filed a brief statement claiming she would not participate in this racist show trial. But she was required to be present for the final session. John Kennedy walked in carrying a single leather-bound folder. His final report. He placed it on the podium, looked around the chamber, and began. Members of Congress, today I will present my final report and recommendations in the matter of Representative Ilhan Omar. For 4 days, I presented evidence. Today, I'm going to synthesize that evidence, explain its legal significance, and tell you what should happen next. But before I do that, I want to address something Representative Omar said last night on Twitter. She called this a racist show trial. She claimed this investigation is motivated by anti-Muslim bigotry and xenophobia. Let me be very clear. This is not about race. This is not about religion. This is not about immigration status or country of origin. This is about fraud. This is about lying. This is about a member of Congress who committed federal crimes and then spent 8 years covering them up. If Representative Omar were white Christian and born in Iowa and she had committed these same crimes, I would be presenting the same evidence and making the same recommendations. The law applies equally to everyone. That's what equal justice means. And equal justice is what we're seeking here. He opened his report. Let me summarize what we've proven over the past 4 days. Day 1. The marriages we established through public records, court documents, and property records that Representative Omar engaged in a pattern of fraudulent marital conduct. Faith marriage to Ahmed Hirsi, 2002. Legally unrecognized. Filing for divorce from someone she was never married to. 2008. Legal marriage to Ahmed Elmi, 2009, while continuing relationship with Hirsi. Living with Hirsi while legally married to Elmi, 2009 to 2017. Having children with Hirsi while married to Elmi. Owning property with Elmi while living with Hirsi. Finally divorcing Elmi and marrying Hirsi legally 2017 to 2018. This pattern establishes a foundation of fraudulent legal filings and misrepresentation. Day 2. The brother. We proved through DNA evidence, British public records, witness testimony, and photographs that Ahmed Noor say Elmi is Representative Omar's biological brother. DNA analysis from 2 independent laboratories. 99.94% probability of full sibling relationship. British Home Office records listing them as siblings. 19,957 British school records listing them as siblings. 3 witnesses who knew them as children confirming sibling relationship. Photographs showing Ahmed Elmi referring to Ilhan Omar as his sister. Social media posts referring to each other as siblings. The brother relationship is proven beyond any reasonable doubt. We also established that the marriage in 2009 coincided exactly with Ahmed Elmi's visa application, suggesting immigration fraud as the motive. Day 3. The money. We documented systematic financial fraud. Tax fraud. 5 years of fraudulent joint returns. 2011 to 2015. Filing as married couple while living in separate states. False deductions totaling approximately $41,000 claiming married benefits while maintaining separate households. Student loan fraud. 3 years of false FAFSA forms. Failing to disclose marriage and spouse's income. Fraudulently obtaining approximately $90 in federal student aid. Campaign finance fraud. False disclosure forms. 2016-2018. Hiding true marital status from voters. Failing to disclose jointly owned property. Lying on federal campaign aid documents. Total financial benefit from fraud approximately $131. Day 4. The lies. We documented 8 years of systematic lying. Lies to voters during campaigns. 2016-2018 lies to media outlets. 2016 to 2024 lies to fellow members of Congress. 2019 lies under oath in sworn statements. 2019 perjury lies on social media to millions of followers. Lies on the House floor using those lies to fundraise $2.3 million raised by claiming victim status. The pattern shows deliberate sustained deception designed to cover up crimes. Kennedy closed that section of his report. That's the evidence. Now, let me explain the legal significance. Kennedy pulled out a chart listing federal statutes. Based on the evidence presented, Representative Omar has committed violations of at least 8 federal criminal statutes. 1. Immigration fraud. Title 8 U.S.C. Savior 1325. Entering into a marriage for the purpose of evading immigration laws. Penalty up to 5 years imprisonment. Evidence marriage to brother in 2009 directly preceded his visa application and U.S. entry to visa fraud. Title 18 U.S.C. Follower 146 making false statements in visa applications and immigration documents. Penalty up to 10 years imprisonment. Evidence Ahmed Elmi's visa application based on fraudulent marriage. 3 Tax fraud. Title 26 U.S.C. Sector 7206 filing false tax returns. Penalty up to 3 years imprisonment per count. Evidence 5 years of fraudulent joint returns 2011 to 2015. 4. Student loan fraud. Title 20 USC Server 197 making false statements to obtain federal student financial aid. Penalty up to 5 years imprisonment evidence. 3 years of false FAFSA forms. 5. Wire fraud. Title 18 USC Server 1343 using interstate communications to execute fraud schemes. Penalty up to 20 years imprisonment evidence electronic filing of false tax returns. Campaign disclosures financial aid applications. 6. Campaign finance violations. Title 52 USC. Separator 30109. Knowingly filing false statements on campaign finance forms. Penalty up to 5 years imprisonment evidence. Multiple false disclosure forms 2016-2018. 7. Perjury. Title 18 USC. Cirkind 21. Making false statements under oath. Penalty up to 5 years imprisonment. Evidence. Sworn statement to Minnesota Campaign Finance Board 2019-8. False statements. Title 18 USC Sever making false statements to federal officials and agencies. Penalty up to 5 years imprisonment per count. Evidence. Multiple false statements on federal forms. And 2 federal investigators. Conservative estimate Representative Omar committed approximately 34 separate federal felonies. Kennedy set down the statute chart. Now, some of you might be thinking, those are serious charges. Shouldn't we let the Department of Justice decide whether to prosecute? And normally, I'd agree. The House shouldn't be in the business of determining criminal guilt. That's what courts are for. But there's a separate question. Should someone who has committed these crimes be allowed to remain in Congress while they await prosecution? And to that, I say no, absolutely not. Kennedy pulled out the final section of his report. Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution states, each House may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and with the concurrence of 2/3, expel a member. The House has the constitutional authority to expel members for serious misconduct. Historically, members have been expelled for treason and disloyalty during civil war, corruption and bribery, criminal conduct incompatible with office. Representative Omar's conduct clearly meets the standard for expulsion. She committed immigration fraud by marrying her brother. She committed tax fraud over 5 years. She committed student loan fraud. She committed campaign finance violations. She committed perjury. She lied to this body and to the American people for 8 years. This is not a single mistake. This is not a lapse in judgment. This is systematic, deliberate, sustained criminal conduct followed by systematic, deliberate, sustained lying to cover it up. She does not belong in Congress. Kennedy paused, then continued more quietly. I know some of you are uncomfortable with this. You're thinking she's a member of the minority party. She's a woman of color. She's Muslim. She's an immigrant. Won't expelling her look like persecution? To which I say, would you make that same argument if she were a white male Republican from Texas who committed the same crimes? Equal justice means equal accountability. It means we don't give people a pass because of their identity. And it means we don't protect criminals just because they're politically aligned with us. Representative Omar committed federal crimes. She lied about those crimes. She attacked anyone who questioned her. She used victimhood as a shield against accountability. That cannot stand. Kennedy opened to his final page. Therefore, I make the following recommendations to this body. 1. The House of Representatives should vote to expel Representative Ilhan Omar from Congress pursuant to Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution. 2. The evidence compiled in this investigation should be referred to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution. 3. The evidence should be referred to the Department of Homeland Security for potential denaturalization proceedings as obtaining citizenship through fraudulent means is grounds for revocation. 4. The evidence should be referred to the Internal Revenue Service for civil and criminal tax enforcement. 5. The evidence should be referred to the Minnesota state authorities for any state law violations. Representative Omar came to America as a refugee. America gave her shelter, opportunity, citizenship, and a platform. She repaid that generosity with fraud and lies. She doesn't deserve to represent the American people in Congress. She deserves to face the same justice system every other American faces when they break the law. Kennedy closed his report. Members of Congress, I've presented the evidence. I've explained the law. I've made my recommendation. Now, It's up to you. Will you uphold your oaths to defend the Constitution and ensure equal justice? Or will you protect a criminal because it's politically convenient? I'm just a country lawyer from Louisiana. But I know right from wrong. And I know fraud when I see it. Representative Ilhan Omar is a fraud. And it's time for her to face the consequences. He sat down. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Speaker Johnson spoke. The House will now vote on the resolution to expel Representative Ilhan Omar from Congress. Under Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution, expulsion requires a two-thirds majority. All those in favor of expulsion signify by saying aye. A thunderous chorus of ayes echoed through the chamber. Not just Republicans, but dozens of Democrats who'd seen the evidence and knew they couldn't defend the indefensible. All those opposed signify by saying nay. A scattering of nays: progressives loyal to Omar despite everything and a few members who opposed expulsion on procedural grounds. The clerk will conduct a recorded vote. For the next 30 minutes, members filed past voting machines. The tally appeared on screens: ayes 387, nays 48. More than two-thirds. More than enough. The resolution is adopted. Representative Ilhan Omar is hereby expelled from the House of Representatives effective immediately. Security officers approached Omar's table. She stood slowly, her face a mask of fury and humiliation, and was escorted out of the chamber. She was no longer a member of Congress. And within 24 hours, she would be under federal arrest. FBI agents arrived at Ilhan Omar's Washington, D.C. residence at 6 a.m. with an arrest warrant. The images played on every network. The former congresswoman in handcuffs being led to a federal vehicle. Her carefully cultivated image as a progressive icon replaced by the reality of a criminal defendant. The federal indictment was 94 pages long and included 5 counts of immigration fraud, 5 counts of tax fraud, 3 counts of student loan fraud, 4 counts of wire fraud, 6 counts of campaign finance violations, 3 counts of perjury, 8 counts of making false statements. Total 34 federal felony counts. The evidence was overwhelming. The trial lasted only 3 weeks because Omar's attorneys had no defense against DNA evidence. Public records, sworn testimony, and her own documented lies. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all 34 counts. Federal Judge Paul Magnus delivered the sentence. M. Omar, you came to this country as a refugee. America gave you everything: safety, opportunity, citizenship, education, a career in public service. You repaid that generosity with fraud. You married your brother to game the immigration system. You filed false tax returns for 5 years. You fraudulently obtained $90 in student financial aid. You lied on campaign forms. You lied under oath. You lied to voters, to Congress, to America. And when caught, you didn't accept responsibility. You attacked investigators as racists. You claimed victimhood. You used your identity as a shield against accountability. That is not how we treat immigrants in America. Immigrants who play by the rules, work hard, and contribute to society, they are welcome and valued. But those who commit fraud and abuse the system, they face consequences. I sentence you to 10 years for immigration and visa fraud, 8 years for tax fraud consecutive, 5 years for student loan fraud consecutive, 5 years for perjury concurrent. Total 23 years in federal prison. Additionally, I order denaturalization. Your citizenship was obtained through fraudulent means and is hereby revoked. Deportation. Upon completion of sentence, you will be deported to Somalia. Restitution. You will repay $131 in fraudulently obtained benefits. Asset forfeit. All campaign funds raised through false claims are forfeited. Ms. Omar, you could have been an inspiration. A refugee who made it to Congress. Instead, you'll be remembered as a cautionary tale about fraud and lies. For John Kennedy, Senator Kennedy returned to Louisiana after completing his work as special counsel. He gave exactly 1 interview to 60 Minutes. I didn't take any pleasure in that investigation. I didn't enjoy destroying someone's career. But I believe in the rule of law, and I believe that everyone, regardless of their race, religion, or political party, should face the same justice system. Ilhan Omar committed crimes, serious crimes, and she lied about them for 8 years. If we had let her get away with it just because she's politically protected, what message would that send? It would say that some people are above the law, and that's not America. I'm just a country lawyer. But I know that justice has to be equal or it's not justice at all. And sometimes doing the right thing means doing the hard thing. Representative Omar. Former Representative Omar. She had every opportunity to come clean. To tell the truth. To accept responsibility. She chose lies instead. She chose attacks instead. She chose to play the victim instead of being accountable. So what happened to her isn't persecution. It's consequences. And in America, everyone faces consequences for their crimes. Even former members of Congress. His approval ratings in Louisiana, 87%. The Omar case became the definitive example of how immigration fraud, once exposed, destroys everything built on it. Law schools taught it. FBI used it in training. Immigration attorneys cited it to clients. This is what happens when you lie. Congress passed the Immigration Integrity Act requiring DNA testing for all family-based immigration applications. Cross-referencing of tax returns with immigration filings. Automatic review of naturalization cases where fraud is alleged. Mandatory disclosure of all foreign marriages by candidates for federal office. The message was clear. America welcomes immigrants, but fraud will be punished. Lies will be exposed, and no one, regardless of their identity or political position, is above the law. John Kennedy sat in his Senate office 1 year after the investigation concluded. A framed news article on his wall showed the moment of expulsion. Omar expelled from Congress 387 to 48. His chief of staff knocked on the door. Senator, there's another member of Congress facing fraud allegations. The speaker wants to know if you'd serve as special counsel again. Kennedy smiled. His Louisiana smile, folksy, friendly, and absolutely deadly to those who underestimated him. Well, I'm just a country lawyer. But if there's fraud to be investigated and justice to be served, I suppose I can make the time. Because in Washington, D.C., corruption would always exist. Politicians would always think they could get away with it. And powerful people would always believe they were above the law. But as long as there were prosecutors like John Kennedy, smart enough to build an airtight case, patient enough to present it methodically, and principled enough to follow the evidence wherever it led, there would be accountability. Ilhan Omar had thought she was untouchable. Protected by identity politics. Shielded by progressive activists. Defended by a sympathetic media. She'd been wrong. The country lawyer from Louisiana had proved that fraud is fraud. Lies are lies. And justice is justice regardless of who commits the crimes. And 23 years in federal prison gave her plenty of time to think about